Hey y'all, I'm working on this upcycling project right now for one of my mother's former colleagues. I mean, they're more friends than colleagues now because they don't work together anymore. But the friend of hers, Linda, who had asked me to upcycle her mother's wedding dress into her great niece's first birthday dress, asked that I repurpose the original gown, which was it's always like a very hard or very challenging project because I feel like to take something apart that has so much um, like sentimental value, being an heirloom, can sometimes be like a little touchy, even for me as a designer. And if you've watched Project Runway, you've seen my um, response before to a situation like that. But this is the real world, and someone wants me to upcycle their heirloom wedding dress into a new purpose. So she doesn't have children herself, but she wanted me to make the first birthday dress for her great niece. So with that being said, I guess I just show you where I am so far. I just drafted this pattern. I put a pleat down the center front so that it could be as A-line as possible because I'm not doing fittings with this almost 12-month-old baby. I set in some little sleeves, and since I took the fabric from the train portion of the dress, I had aired it out for a few days, and I wanted to keep the original hem here. And since this is from the train, and although the dress has been professionally dry cleaned, I did cut and sew a full lining that was in a polyester crepe that I washed and dried in the washing machine. And now is the real challenge because I need to figure how I'm going to apply this applique. It was originally an ivory, I feel like it's a crepe back satin. It's definitely polyester because it ironed really, really well, which was nice. And I could just tell the difference between that and a silk. But the lace was probably originally white or ivory, and just over time has become a little bit less vibrant. And the original dress, I'll attach a photo as well, had like a heart shape that was done in this pleated tulle. So we're trying to mimic that, but at the same time, I didn't want to like dismantle too much of the original bodice because it's such a small commission, such a small piece. And on top of it, the original, which I'll show you in a second, is all hand pleated and hand appliqued. So it's extremely difficult to take that apart without destroying it. So I ended up taking this from the back neckline, and it was attached with a sewing machine, which made the stitches a little bit tighter and a little bit more difficult to remove. So I can't promise that the lace isn't damaged in some places. You can see like along the edging here, the cording has kind of come undone. But let's take a look at the original dress and what the options are. So here I have the original dress. You can see that I've already removed the applique from the back neckline here. I tried to be as delicate as possible. I ended up cutting the fabric yardage that I used from the center back train area, and it still has the original horsehair and the hem. So I thought that would be nice to kind of maintain in the integrity of this new piece. There is lace that's kind of acting as a belt or waistband. I'm also going to remove the covered buttons, and I don't know that I'll use the original loops, but I thought what a pretty detail was that there's actually horsehair here in the sleeve too. But I'm going to use the original buttons on the sleeves of the new piece just to kind of be an homage to the original. So here's that pleated tulle. You can probably see the little stitching here in some of the folds. There's a little bit that's done by machine, but honestly, because the tulle is so airy, if I end up seam ripping that, it's going to destroy the fabric. So we want to kind of replicate this heart shape on the bodice. I love how it has like this almost like slimming effect, which is really commonly seen in a lot of garments. Even like, think of princess seams and how that kind of tapers from the bust to the waist. But yeah, I thought set in sleeves, kind of having like an A-line shape, would feel reminiscent of the original. And let's go back to the commission piece so we can play with some layout options. All right, so as I mentioned a minute ago, it's really tricky because I do want to emulate that original concept here. But I also don't want it to look too vintage or too old-fashioned. So maybe we can even go like up and around the neckline to feel kind of like sailor-esque or something. I also had cut and sewn a little collar that I thought would be like a pretty detail, which personally I feel like it makes it feel a bit more suitable to the occasion, it being like a first birthday. It's not a christening dress, but to me I'm like, oh, it's a christening dress. So yeah, I think maybe I could even do something really cute where it kind of comes up and over the shoulder, which I'll have to hand applique. But luckily I was able to take this kind of like shoulder strap detail, and it already has some of the pleating in place, which is really nice because that's a lot less work for me to replicate. So we'll see. I mean, we could always do something like down the sleeves and just have the collar, but I think for the sake of like, again, that sentiment, she really wants to have something that kind of follows that heart motif down the bodice. But let me know your thoughts. I will be working on this afternoon, and yeah, thanks so much for tuning in.